Hello survivors, and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video. And in this video we're going to be taking a first look at the next Battle Pass character reward, and it is going to be Gold Mythic Sheldon. Now we have had a Sheldon in the game before. In the 6-star era there was an alert character that was a Sheldon. This character obviously is going to be tough. He's got that two-handed weapon. You can see it looks like he's got an attached weapon by the looks of things. It looks pretty cool. His get-up looks pretty cool. I like the jacket, pretty standout, nice blue. He's got the devil on the arm. I like the visuals, and then he's got that mask. The mask is honestly kind of nightmarish for me, if I'm honest, because he's probably just chilling. He's just probably chilling behind the mask, but it doesn't look like it. It looks like he's a psycho. He's got the glasses that he kind of wore, I believe, as a 6-star too, and I believe he had a cap on then as well. So it's kind of keeping to kind of like what we saw on his 6-star version, which is kind of cool. If we look at his stats as a level 720 limit break 3 character, he has got 20,228 attack, 13,148 defense, and 17,194 HP. He is a tough character, of course, like I said before. He is a support character, mythic character, of course, and he is going to be another character to join the Day 1 Allegiance. I believe there's a little handful of characters now. I know Angel's in there. I'm not 100% sure who the other characters are, but Sheldon's going to be joining in on that Allegiance, and you know how it goes. There could be a character that joins at any time that just has a big buff to Day 1 Allegiance characters, be it on a lead skill or a passive, and suddenly that's an actual team, so do keep an eye out for that in the future. Now, first off, we'll look at Sheldon's Adrenaline Rush, and it is called Incendiary Shells. It is a 66 AP cost rush while battling on the offense team, so it looks like he's an attack team character. Deal 25% of this character's attack in burn damage to 2 enemies for 2 turns. Make 2 attacks against the primary target for 100% damage, 200% total. So you can see the damage output on this rush is not to do with the actual percentage. It's actually quite low percentage damage. It's all about that burn damage. Now that burn damage obviously is going to be the target that you actually attack, and then one random other teammate of the enemy, and then you can potentially apply things based on weapon, based on special skill, based on mods. So for instance, if you had a bleed mod on this guy, he would also apply bleed twice to the target that he attacked, I think. So you can stack up quite a reasonable amount of damage over time, and 25% of someone's attack is, generally speaking, at least 25,000, you know, because you can get up to 100,000 attack quite easily if you get him in the right setup. And do remember, this does take into effect things like, you know, any buffs. So if you've got a character on a team that does buffs, like you've got 2 or 3 strong characters and you've got a strong attacks weapon, he'll have 30% extra attack, and that will be inclusive on this. That'll be his overall attack stat after all the calculations come through. So that burn damage can definitely boost it up quite a bit. Okay, so we have got the Adrenaline Rush up of Sheldon here, and we're going to target the alert character. It's not going to do too much damage, but because it's trait damage, it might be reasonable. And we're going to get the rush off, as you can see. And we'll look at the burn numbers here. The secondary character has 16,000, and then the primary character has 32,000. This is obviously because of the interaction with the other parts of Sheldon's kit, namely his specialist skill. Because he attacks that character twice, the first attack will apply the burn, and the second attack will double it. This is obviously very, very good when it comes to getting that burn as high as possible, as quickly as possible. You can also see the character did get impaired, and this is again because of another part of his kit. So we'll check that out later on in the video. So we'll go straight into the upgrades on the Adrenaline Rush, and if we look at grade 2 upgrade, you can see it gets +1 burn target. So initially it is only going to burn the character that you actually focus with the rush, so it goes up to just 1 extra random target. At grade 4, the burn duration will now be 2 turns instead of the initial 1 turn. At limit break 1, you'll see 10% burn damage addition, so initially it is 15% of the character's attack stat in burn damage, and then it will get increased to 25%. And then lastly, at LB3, the AP cost will be reduced to 66. So initially it is actually a 75 AP cost, which is actually quite high. We'll have to see if there's any boost to potential AP gain in Sheldon's kit. Otherwise, LB3 will be very important to actually be able to get this rush off quickly. Now, I think Burn and Bleed has had like a reasonable comeback, especially with the changes to War. You can easily see if there's a team that is susceptible to Burn and Bleed. There are also teams that are more susceptible to Burn and Bleed after the first like 1 or 2 turns, and it isn't just like straight away. For instance, PAM teams rely on like resist from certain weapons that only last like a turn. So potentially, because Sheldon's burn comes in like at turn 2 and turn 3, it's more of a finishing thing rather than having to start the burn really heavy early on. I think this actually could still work against a lot of different teams. So you know, obviously there's certain characters which will counter this, you know, Tara Leeds and Williams and stuff like this, but if they're not on those teams, you can easily identify that and say, hey, maybe Sheldon's going to work here, and that burn damage is not going to be a joke at all, because it can be boosted, like I say, from the stats, 1535s, leader skill, weapon, and then obviously his mods, and any other parts of his kit, which there is going to be another part of his kit which boosts burn potential. So yeah, I think Sheldon's burn damage output should be pretty good on this Adrenaline Rush, and I think most people are going to compare this character to Abraham, and one of the biggest downsides of Abraham's rush was it just didn't seem that heavy hitting, considering he had a rocket launcher, in terms of the amount of burn damage he was going to do, whereas because Sheldon can double it instantly, it's instantly going to be like really hyper effective, which is great. Now next up, Sheldon has a signature move, and it is called Team Confidence. It has an initial cooldown of turn 1, cooldown of 2 turns, number of uses unlimited. This character and up to 2 teammates get 25% attack for 2 turns, attack an enemy for 100% damage. So again, not really a heavy hitting, you know, direct heavy hitting signature move, kind of like the Rush, just 100%. It will still be reasonable. It can crit. You know, this isn't too terrible. It does mean it can potentially double attack. Does mean all of his things so far can potentially rampage as well if you really wanted to do it. But you're probably better off just relying more on the burn side of things. Attack stats more important. However, that 25% attack boost is nice. The thing is, when you do this, one of those 2 turns is the turn you actually do the signature move. It will only give you an attack boost the next turn. So when you want to do this is actually when you know you're going to rush the next turn, and give yourself a 25% attack boost for your rush turn. If you do this on turn 1, you're not going to generally be rushing turn 2 unless you get commanded or you have some other characters in the team that are going to give you AP boosts. You're definitely going to have that rush nice and quick. 66 AP is going to be very important if you want to, you know, obviously get that rush off nice and early. And that's generally going to be turn 3. So a lot of the time you're going to save this till turn 2. But that's not really that big a deal, because this isn't really that an amazing a signature move in itself. It's setting up for the rush, so you just want to make sure you time it correctly. So I'll start the fight here, and as you can see, turn 1, I can just do the signature move. I can decide who I'm going to use it against, and I'm going to give myself 25% attack boost, and also going to give a teammate a 25% attack boost. In this case, it was Jackie, which is going to be nice because she's got a first turn, you know, signature move as well, and I can just get a bit of a damage boost on that first turn. Now, I'm not going to be able to rush turn 2 unless I get potential AP boosts. Now, Sheldon's going to get focused because there are quite a lot of fast characters on this defense team. So his basic attack now, he should be able to get enough AP to be commanded. But as you can see, this would have worn off. There's only a 1 turn left. If I waited to the next turn for the natural rush, I would not have this 25% boost. So you have to time it correctly, or you're going to have to waste a command. And I would generally say it's not really ideal to command him. Especially depending on the sort of team setup you want to do. He's primarily going to be built in a damage over time team, and that's all about control, characters that do damage over time, and commands just aren't really in that. And then you can obviously just rush, and then you can do exactly what you saw when I showed you the rush before. It'll double the burn on the character you selected, and it'll be 16k burn just randomly somewhere else. Now remember how burn works as well. If I take that character out, the burn passes to someone else, and that would happen when Sheldon does his rush 2, just FYI, because he would do the double, and then it would go to the next character. So it's just worth noting that the burn will always be there. So we'll look at the upgrades on the signature move, and you can see at grade 3 it gets -1 to cooldown, so it goes from a 3-turn cooldown down to a 2-turn cooldown. At grade 5 it gets +2 attack up targets. So initially I think I assumed it was just one other teammate plus Sheldon, but it's actually Sheldon +2, which is great. At Limit Break 2, it gets -1 to starting cooldown. So it goes from a 2-turn starting cooldown down to a 1-turn starting cooldown. That one doesn't matter as much, obviously. It matters more about his limit breaks for his rush and obviously his stats. But having a 1 or 2-turn starting cooldown isn't terrible. The cooldown reduction off grade 3 is more important, and that happens quite easily. Now, if you are going to have a strong attacks, setup where you've got 3 strong characters with the strong attacks weapon, it would just overwrite this 25%, and the 25% will never basically come into fruition. I think it might actually just go on the person who's holding the strong attacks weapon. That'll pretty much be it. And obviously you don't have to time this to perfection like I was saying before, because you're just going to always have that buff. But if you are relying on this buff to give him a boost to his attack, because it's your only attack up source, then you're going to have to time it very, very nicely. Like I say, it only realistically lasts 1 turn for Sheldon, and which is the next turn after he actually does this signature move. So if you haven't got your rush after doing the signature move, you're in trouble. You're going to have to, work out your timing a little bit better. So I don't think this signature move is like crazy, but it will amplify the damage on his rush, on that burn, by quite a significant amount, honestly. If he's got 100,000 attack, it will make him go up to 125,000 attack, and that basically means his burn will get boosted by about 7k. So it's actually not too bad at all. Now the next things we're going to look at is going to be his mythic abilities. These are his passive skills. He is a support character, so he's going to have cunning. This means that he's going to be less likely to proc weapons, which is very important because his signature move does an actual attack, which can make his weapon do double attack on rampage, but it can also make him potentially get stunned. So he's effectively got inbuilt resist here, and then if you want to, you could obviously go for stun resist as well, so it's like a double resist for him. But he could bypass things like absolute defense, which is cool, and the same thing for his adrenaline rush. It's just worth noting. Now the next one is tough flames. At the start of each wave, 100% chance all tank roll enemies get 10,000 burn damage for a single turn. This is obviously really nice because it's a guarantee 100% chance. And that means that he's going to be able to potentially do up to 50,000 damage off of the first turn just for free. Now, there aren't too many 5 tank teams out there. Generally, it's like, the most I see is like 3, maybe 4. You don't see too many 5s. But obviously, resist will come in. Their HP being really high in the first place could make it not as effective. But do remember Sheldon's specialist skill, the way it works. It gives you something to potentially do off of turn 1. And that signature move will proc, his specialist skill. So you can at least trigger that and double one of those burns up to 20,000, which is actually pretty significant against like a Priya defense team because they're mainly defense based rather than HP based. Next up is burnt wounds. At the start of each turn, 70% chance for all burn and bleed effects on the enemy team to be extended by 1 turn. This is kind of like Shiva, where Shiva gets it when she attacks, but she has a 100% chance that the target she attacks, it gets doubled. Extended by a turn, sorry. But with Sheldon, it's 70% chance that all burn and bleed just from when he starts the turn. That's actually kind of nice. It's not going to work with certain mods. It's only going to work with burn mods, and it's only going to work with burn and bleed effects. The way bleed mods work, they only last 1 turn, so they'll basically run out by the time it gets to the start of Sheldon's turn, and he won't be able to extend it. So you're going to have someone else potentially attack a character, and then they could work together. So Sheldon and Shiva together could be very interesting. Next up, we've got Burn Boost. Increase all base burn damage done by this character by 50%. So you may have been looking at that burn going, wait, 16k, 25% of his base, that doesn't seem right. Well, you would be correct. You would be correct. It was boosted by 50%. And then obviously it wasn't just boosted by 50% on the other one because it was boosted by 50%, then he doubled it. So yeah, the potential burn output by this character is great on that adrenaline rush. It's getting a big boost indeed. Okay, so we're going to start the fight, and you can see that the burn is going to be put down, and the initial number did say 10,000, but because of his other passive, it gets boosted up to 15,000. This is something that we obviously didn't realize until we saw that last passive. And this is an extreme situation because I did put 5 tanks into a team. And then obviously I can decide, hey, which one of these characters is annoying and I'm not going to maybe do much damage against, you know, too early in the fight, and it could potentially be Peacekeeper up the top. Go up to 30,000, and it does last a reasonable amount of, you know, turns. But what we'll do is we'll try and just get some attacks in, and what we're going to see is we're going to cleanse, not let her cleanse. But what we're going to see is we want to see if the extension comes in. Let's see if the extension comes in. There's not a great chance. 70%? Did it all get extended? I don't think it did. So we didn't get lucky this time around. But you can see, like, if we did, then we could double it again on someone like Peacekeeper. And then he would have a 60k burn for 2 turns. Now, this Peacekeeper and the other characters don't have huge amounts of HP. You know, it's not Lieutenant System and stuff like that involved. But if you have got, you know, Lieutenant System involved, you can get up to like 50, 60, 70k on some characters. Peacekeeper, though, however, can get up to very, very massive numbers, like 140, 150k. So being able to double it on him, and you can see he's not building up that much on his bide side of his specialist skill too much, because Sheldon's not going to do huge amounts of damage even on his basic attacks on his rush or his signature moves. So yeah, the burn can just ramp up pretty quickly. There are obviously counters to that: Prayer Cleanse, Angel Self Cleanse, but otherwise it's going to be pretty nice against particular characters and teams. However, it is extremely important to realize that if a team has no tanks, they will not take any burn damage off of that passive. It will basically just not work. That little clip I showed you there is basically the extreme example where someone's using 5 tanks, but if someone's using 1, only 1 character would get 15,000 burn. Just take that into account. Now we'll go over the upgrades here. You can see Tough Flames is boosted at grade 1. It's 50% chance all tank role enemies get the 10,000 burn. At grade 2, he gets the first half of Cunning. 15% chance less likely to proc weapon effects. At grade 3, he gets the second half of Tough Flames, which is obviously great because then he gets that burn boost against those tank characters very early on. And then even though his rush is potentially slow until LB3, at least he can get some initial burn out and then potentially work with other teammates to get that burn going, which is decent. Next up is the first half of Burnt Wounds, and it's a 30% chance for all burn and bleed effects to be extended by 1 turn at the beginning of his turn. And then next we have Burn Boost, increase base burn damage done by this character by 20%. Now we'll move on to the limit breaks, and you can see at limit break 1, Cunning 2 comes in, and it's going to be 15% on top of the initial 15%, making it 30% total. At limit break 2, we can see Burnt Wounds 2 comes in, making it a 70% chance total that burn and bleed effects will be extended by 1 turn. And then lastly, we have Burn Boost 2, which is going to increase all base burn damage done by this character by a further 30%, making it 50% total. So obviously, as you can see, he does get quite nice parts of his kit to initially set up the burn on fights, basically with the tough burn. But if you want to get the best out of him, you definitely have to get him to LB3, not just for his passives here, but obviously for that rush, to get that burn to happen as quickly as possible. 66 AP on the rush, having the burn damage increased by a further 30%, up to 50% total. The burn output will be drastically increased, and obviously the big burn, which is going to be on that adrenaline rush, will be applied much earlier on in the fight. So limit break 3 for the stats, for the burn boost on the passive and on that rush seems quite important. But if you only did manage to get this character to grade 5, because he's the battle pass character, that would be 2 for free to play, you are still going to be able to do a lot at the beginning of the fight. You'll have a 12,000 burn on any of the tank characters on a defense team. You can obviously double that with Sheldon on turn 1 up to 24,000, and you can just keep doubling. And you can have other characters that come in to extend, or you could just double someone else's. You know, it's going to be really effective on road maps as well. These harder road maps with tanky characters have no resists. So he's going to be able to come in and just absolutely wreck those stages. Now the last part of Sheldon's main kit is his specialist skill. Now we've kind of seen the effects of this already, so I'm only just going to breeze over this. Whenever this character attacks a character suffering from burn, the damage of that burn effect is doubled. Target can only be affected once per turn. I showed you that with the adrenaline rush because you saw one of the burns was double of the other. I also showed you with one of the passives where I was just using it on Peacekeeper, where I was just doubling it and doubling it. That's how Arsonist works. You can, of course, combo him up with someone who has Firestarter, which is someone like Andrea 2000, and where he can get off that heavy initial burn off of turn 1, she can spread it even onto a non-tank character at that point. So again, some of these older characters maybe coming back to relevancy with newer characters that come out is actually pretty cool. And Andrea 2000 was a favorite of mine, so you know, being able to utilize her with Sheldon would be, I think, much better than, let's say, Abraham. Abraham was always a little bit underwhelming. Although his specialist skill was very good, the rest of his kit just never really hit the mark for me, and I think it does a lot more with Sheldon. Now, the last thing we're going to look at is Sheldon's weapon, and it is Sheldon's Dazing Shotgun. It has got a 30% attack boost off the base. It also has a huge bonus to AP when attacking, and in the third slot it has Impair when attacking, a better chance to impair the enemy for 3 turns. So this is actually a pretty decent base weapon. You can get up to 45% attack, then 5-star it. You can put 1535 on it, and then put it up to 55% attack, which is the highest percentage attack you could get. And then you're going to have a huge amount of stat boost onto attack with the 1535 and the 55% attack, and that's going to amplify his burn damage on his rush. It's going to be really nice. But also the Impair is going to work with anything he does. His signature move, his basic attacks, his rush. And that means controlling characters, potentially stopping them from, you know, doing rushes which could potentially heal, potentially revive, which is going to be obviously quite useful. So I like this a lot. It looks also very interesting. It looks like it's got like a custom sort of, not silencer, you can't really put a silencer on a shotgun, but it will make it a little bit less crazy sounding, I guess. Muffler, maybe. Just muffle it a little bit. You won't be too sure which direction it came from, but you will hear this for sure. It's a pretty beastly shotgun. So that's Gold Mythic Sheldon, and I actually think he's going to have some pretty decent usability, at the very least, for roadmaps. If you're someone who's struggling on these roadmaps, like I said, he's going to be extremely useful there, just because he's going to be ultra effective. There aren't too many characters that are going to be able to stop the burn and bleed. Even characters like William, it's on their passives, and in roadmaps, those passives don't exist. So Sheldon's going to be very good. It's only going to be against characters like Tara and maybe Wang Fa, because they're leaders and they actually stop burn and bleed. But like I said, if you come up against someone like Jackie, I believe the burn and bleed, you know, resist on Jackie is only for the first 2 turns. So you could just time Sheldon's rush to perfection on those roadmaps and it will still do pretty decent damage, which is actually pretty good. So yeah, overall I think Sheldon's pretty nice, and he is like a better version of Abraham 2.0, if you will. But how effective he's going to be is based on, you know, which teams you're going to face. And because we can see those war teams now, you're just going to have to set up a team to potentially use a burn and bleed team, or, you know, a burn team, and take it in when it looks most viable. However, I think he would be great in other types of PvE content in the future and the current, you know, like Conquest, Challenge Run, and potentially Faction Assault down the line. This looks like a pretty fun character, and it'll be very interesting to see how he works, and maybe, like I say, team him up with Andrea 2000. I think they'd work very well together. But do tell me your thoughts on Sheldon, his visuals, the mask that he's got on, his kit. Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.